Right, and we're back. Sorry. My little timer that tells me how much time I have to film is becoming increasingly unreliable. It said I had 12 minutes left at the last mark. Or maybe it was showing me what I had used up. I don't know. I was telling a story about a Terry Pratchett book where a young man decides to become a witch because he likes the work that witches do, which is to help people. And he wants to help people and make the world a better place. And Tiffany Aching, the main character, who my wife will be playing, which she'll be cosplaying one day at DragonCon this year with a very elaborate Tiffany costume. It's going to be awesome. If you're at DragonCon, just look for Ted Lasso and a witch with a hat full of sky. Anyway, this young man wants to become a witch, and everybody's dubious, but he's asked, he's asked a question by Tiffany about essentially about his identity, and he says, "I've only ever thought of me as me. I've never thought of myself as a man or a woman, just me or as me." I'm kind of plumbing the depths of that scene still mentally, and that book came out right after Terry Pratchett died, 14 years ago, I think, maybe 13 years ago it came out, and still trying to fully embrace and understand that concept. But we need to think of ourselves as people, and we need to think of everyone around us as people. Now, getting back to the idea of whether this would become a second purity culture, I think that's where behavior comes in, coupled with the way we think. So, a lot of the worst toxic masculinity happens in the direct company of men together. The root of it, a lot of it, and I kind of learned this from another YouTube creator, or at least, actually, it might have been a Substack. It might have been a Substack article, but talking about how one of the overriding be-all, end-alls of whether a man is likely to become not only a toxic male, but potentially a rapist, or to feel the need to prove oneself through sexual conquest up unto the point of the R word, comes from emasculation. The standards built up between men of what it is to be a man, and how when men emasculate one another, this creates a deep, and it starts young, very young. The pressure to be a man creates a deep resentment, and coupled with notions of sexuality, you end up with a poison pill for so many men across all, well, not all the time in all civilizations, but pretty much across all civilizations, that the emasculation created by male behavior and societal nonsense can foster a culture where harming people, especially in a sexual manner, becomes a way to fight back against things that happened years before that and had nothing to do with the victim. So when it comes to your behavior, how do you talk to young men? How do you talk to boys? What sorts of ideas are you putting into their heads? And as well, and again, for some people, this might require therapy. Like not like, oh, you need to go to therapy. No, you might actually need legitimate therapy to realize that you yourself hold these views and need to, if not purge them, fight them and recognize them when they show up, when they rear their ugly head. Because if you are teaching men that to be a man is a certain way, and that you have to be this way, or you're being feminine or emasculated or a woman in some sort of way. Firstly, that's a man who can think for himself is almost impossible. Same for, a lot of women, it's very difficult because of our social conditioning. So we need to recognize it when we're giving into it, or when we're feeling the pressure of it, or when it's overriding what we know to be the right thing to do. And we need to not put that on other people as well. We need to not inflict it upon our fellow man, because it reinforces ideas that will lead you down a dangerous road of how you think about women and what you're entitled to with regard to women, and who they are supposed to be and who you are supposed to be. And so we're not talking about purity culture in the sense of placing a burden on one segment of the population to protect themselves and the other half. We're talking about ways of thinking and ways of acting with respect to other people of the same sex, other men, other boys, so that we're not creating this culture. If we perpetuate it, it carries on. It is fostered and grown. And I'm as guilty as anyone. I think I said in the last video, I grew up with strong notions of what manhood and manliness were. That doesn't mean I lived them all the time, but they were there, and they're still there. It's not like they just disappeared. There are certain things I think you should be able to do. However, chief among them are cook for yourself, which I did tonight for supper. Clean the space that you have, because it's your space. It's where you exist. It's where you live. It's where you sleep. Weirdly, a whole nother thing is I learned from a very early age that being able to drive a nail without even thinking about it with a hammer is a virtue. And I still think that's a good one. Like, male, female, doesn't matter. I've driven thousands of nails with these two hands right here. And it doesn't matter if you're male or female. If you need to mend something, whether it's a fence or to hang up a picture, you need to know how to drive a nail. But there's all these little things that we uphold as manly virtues, and our society's got them all goofy and backwards oftentimes. I've talked about that a bit in the past, about ideas of what things are manly and feminine, and continuing on with the idea of what can we do, what are actionable items that we can work on, how we think, how we share what we hold dear, and also, and this is where it butts right up against purity culture to me, and it comes right back to me personally and how I acted when I was younger, because I was not forward with women generally. It is important how we interact with women. When we allow our eyes to be the most important interaction with a woman, and what we see and what we can bask in, that's the male gaze. That's something that causes women to be uncomfortable. And likewise, how we engage verbally. Are we engaging the person in front of us, or are we doing two things at once, and both taking them in visually with the male gaze, and okay, you're talking to me, thanks for talking to me, that's not why I'm here. What are you there for? Are you there to legitimately engage with that person, or is your engagement only a precursor to whatever sexual or otherwise relationship value you think you can get out of this interaction. These are things we need to work on, things we need to apply, things we need to meditate on. And I don't mean like it, in any particular way. I mean, they're things we need to keep in our minds and our thoughts and continually meditate upon them. So, I don't think there's a whole lot more to say tonight necessarily. We cannot go back to purity culture. I mean, I know it's still there, and it's, I mean, like I said, Mike Johnson, the Speaker of the House of Representatives, engaged in some sort of insane, ritualistic, non-biblical, extra-biblical, if you want, chastity ceremony with his daughter. That is the creepiest thing I can imagine. I'm not out here to just tell men, we got to protect them ladies. That's not what all this is for. This is because I would like for men to have a future that is healthy and beneficial to society, and not tech bros and the J.D. Vances of the world and the Donald freaking Trumps of the world telling men and boys who men and boys are supposed to be. It's not going to be a bright future for anybody, and you will not find that repressing and oppressing women makes for a happy world. It might, give you the opportunity to oppress other people and make a lot of money and rule the world, so to speak. But you will die bitter. You will live unhappily, always afraid of losing your power. And that's not what men should be. Men should not be afraid of losing power, because we should not be desiring to exert power and to exercise it and to rule over other people. I'll go back again, as I do, to my faith. If you go to the Genesis story, the narrative of the creation of the first humans, the man and woman were given dominion over the creatures of the earth, and they were to tend the garden. They were not given dominion over other potential men and women. They were given dominion over things that were not human. And while that dominion is actually responsibility for and care for, not exploitative dominion, it was not over other people. God had dominion. And I realize a lot of people, even those who would exploit Christianity, they don't actually believe it and they don't have a faith in it. And so when you hear them use it as a weapon, as a cudgel to enforce these ideas of inequality and oppression, they're being dishonest. If you like what I'm putting out there, like and subscribe. If you don't, just stop watching. There's no reason to carry on if it's not for you. And if you want more, let me know. If you don't, just stop watching. It's kind of what I've eventually, over 20 years of dealing with social media and YouTube, have finally probably reached that point where I'm just like, I'm not going to watch the next video, or I'm not going to watch any more of this video. That is an option. Kind of like if a woman says no. That's it. So we'll leave it there.